Welcome back to our new episode of The Quad with my wonderful and amazing co-host here. To my right, Vivian Berkovich, former ambassador of Canada in Israel, prominent lawyer. And to my left, wonderful Emily Schrader, human rights activist and journalist. And again, this week, Ashira Solomon is actually in New York, actually doing wonderful things for Israel. She is running a Black Jewish caucus today as we speak, so we will hear all about what she's doing in New York next week. But this week, the ladies and I wanted to talk about the farce that is the ICJ, the International Court of Justice, which is essentially the legal arm of the UN, isn't it? I mean, it was created by the UN. And the irony of this whole thing is that it was created post-Holocaust, when also the word genocide was invented by a Jewish man to describe the horrors of the Nazis and what they'd done to the Jews. And now, genocide is being weaponized against the Jewish people and the state of Israel in order to do the modern version of the Dreyfus trial. And so today, we really wanted to get into it. We all have different angles and opinions. And it's what I saw on Friday was very weak arguments from the South Africans, who are essentially useful tools and the mouthpiece of Hamas, because Hamas, of course, doesn't have country status, taking Israel on a very, obtuse, very kind of, ridiculous clause in the Genocide Convention, taking us to court, essentially to stop the fighting in Gaza. And for that to happen, they have to prove that what Israel is doing is a genocide. So Vivian, as the lawyer here and previous ambassador, what did you think of the proceedings?
Well, one of two lawyers.
One of two.
I thought it was fascinating, distressing. I think that it reflects a lot of so many of the problems that we're seeing in Western society were amplified in it. Truth has become a very subjective thing. Words have become very fungible. I mean, you can just take a word and make it mean anything you need or want it to mean. Yeah. And it's alarming. It's just alarming. I mean, so you had on Thursday, South Africa, the South African Council, and there were 3 or 4 of them, made their arguments explaining why they think this is, or they're submitting to the court that this constitutes genocide, right? Because what they all have to establish is a threshold of genocide is being committed, so they have to convince the court that there's enough evidence here for you to hear the full case.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Well, because the court can decide to throw this whole thing out just on the summary arguments?
Correct.
And that's what Israel wants, right?
Yes, but that's probably not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
Probably not.
Because it's a highly politicized court. Again,
exactly.
The legal arm of the UN, which is highly politicized and anti-Israel.
So then on Friday, the Israeli team got up to make their arguments. And look, they addressed it head on, and I think they were right, not just because I agree with them, but the Israeli team said South Africa got up, they argued facts that are not facts. One of our favorites is, that this has been the heaviest bombardment in the history of conventional warfare, which is a complete lie.
You just have to look at history.
Exactly. So, they threw out stuff like that. They threw out all the civilian casualties. They threw out other lies that Israel is preventing aid from getting in, that Israel is, not allowing civilians to escape and
things
to
that are easily
avoid.
Provable to be lies.
Totally. And so that was the Israeli case was, okay, so, they're using genocide in a very slippery way, not all in a manner consistent with the statute that we're supposed to be considering. But this is the world we live in. It's social media. It's exaggeration. It's demonization. It's who can draw.
We've been talking about all the time. Facts
exactly.
are not facts anymore.
And so, yeah. So, Tal Becker and the others on his team, they were like, in a court of law, words should still matter and truth should still matter. And here are some facts. And so, they did their best to put out the proper facts. But the most compelling to me was if we're doing genocide or committing genocide, we're really, really bad at it.
Yeah. Well, we've always been bad at it, haven't we?
Yeah, like, I mean...
Apparently we're doing this for 75 years, and yet the population
Exactly.
has become 8 times the size. Emily, what did you think?
Not only that, but, you know, as deputy mayor, I'm sure you know already that the Arab population has increased over time. The percentage of Arabs in Jerusalem has increased for all their whining about the Judaization of a Jewish city.
From 18% to 40% today.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
In
It's
Jerusalem.
crazy.
In Jerusalem.
Just
Wow.
the reality is completely removed from what people are saying about Israel and about these issues. But with the trial, I guess it's just, I mean, it struck me how South Africa didn't come there for this case. They came there for the publicity, which is why you saw the legal team wearing, you know, like Free Palestine gear. Like, who does this in a court of law? I have no idea.
Well, I think
I'm not the lawyer here, but
I actually tweeted at the court and asked them, like, is this cool? Because courts always have very strict dress codes. And I'm pretty sure that wearing political signage or symbols in a courtroom and in that courtroom is not allowed. So yeah, the keffiyehs and the Palestine scarves.
Yeah. And they just focused on so many issues in their arguments that are not related to the charge of genocide, first of all. And the two things that really stuck out to me that I thought were very bizarre was that one of the arguments they made is that an example of how Israel is committing genocide because they told Palestinians to leave their homes in order to avoid civilian casualties.
Exactly.
Like and then later they argued that Israel was not allowing them to flee to safety. So they're both not allowing them to flee to safety and telling them to flee to safety at the same time, and both of them are genocide. Like, it's illogical. And then the last thing that I thought was really interesting is that the whole reason that South Africa went to the ICJ is because they claim that they have a dispute with another party, Israel, that has signed this
Genocide Convention.
Exactly. That was their justification for going to the ICJ. Except for the fact that Israel, as they presented, has documentation of South Africa submitting letters and complaints to the state of Israel, and Israel responding and saying, let's set up a meeting. South Africa then didn't respond and then went to the ICJ. So the whole justification for going to the ICJ is made up. So really, the case should be thrown out. But I think you're right, it probably won't, because it's the body of the UN, which is now controlled by dictatorships.
So this is another question, and a lot of people have been writing me on social media. Why did Israel go there? Why did we respond? And I did my own a little bit of research. We are signatories to the ICJ Convention on Genocide. And of course, they're trying to stop the fighting, and they're trying to prove that this is genocide in order to stop the fighting, in order to give Hamas that legal arm. But people have been writing to me, why did Israel take part in this farce? And I asked a friend of mine, Ambassador David Kornbluth, who's an expert, and he said to me, look, we didn't have to go. We really didn't have to go. It wouldn't have looked good. We would have probably, nothing would have probably happened. They would have done their judgment, and it probably wouldn't have been good for Israel. And even then, nothing really may have happened. But it's good that we went to have our day in court, even if in the end, hopefully, if they come back after what we've been talking about here with a ruling that this is genocide, doesn't that just prove that they're a kangaroo court? And isn't that perhaps better for us? So this is a dilemma. People have been writing me, Israel should never have gone.
Well, I don't agree at all. I don't think Israel should have gone because it...
You don't think they should have gone?
No, because it lends legitimacy to the absolute nonsense of A, South Africa, and B, the ICJ. And also, it contributes to the politicization of a court that should be relevant. It should be dealing with global human rights issues and atrocities that are taking place. And instead, it's this circus of, let's condemn Israel. Let's talk about Israel.
And by the way, most of the time, this ICJ is just dealing with boundary disputes.
Yeah, I actually think that Israel didn't really have much of a choice but to go, because to not go feeds into the very entrenched and growing perception of Israel as a rogue nation, of Israel just flouting and thumbing its nose at international law, at decency. We're a signatory to the convention. We're a signatory to the convention. We got to show up when we're being accused of genocide and state our case. Otherwise, the message it sends is, you know what, middle finger to the world. Now, as a practical matter, will it make a difference? I actually think it will.
In what sense? What do you mean it'll make a
Well,
difference?
I think because if we weren't there to represent our point of view, our case,
Then
our
nothing
side.
gets-
Well, no, then it's
their
a slam
narrative.
dunk. It's totally their narrative. Ours never gets aired. So at least we're respecting the institution enough to which we're a signatory to show up and make our arguments. Now, what that's also done is it's emboldened and caused other countries, like Germany, to step up very forcefully.
Yeah.
And there are others coming behind Germany. This is not a one-act play. So even if it goes forward for the full hearing, which I think is likely, I think we're going to see quite a few European countries step up behind Israel, because this is a threat to the West.
It's a threat to
Yes.
them as well.
And-
It means
yeah.
that any terrorist can find some useful fool like the South Africans who happen to have standing, even though the ANC has ruined the country. Emily did a very eloquent piece on her show about they lead the world in murders, rapes, and kidnappings. So this is the country that is taking us. It can
And they're
happen to-
grey-listed for terror financing, and they have a Hamas office in their country. And after October 7th, the foreign minister met with, flew to Iran and had meetings there, and also spoke to Hania and congratulated him on the October 7th.
So this is another question.
And Jeremy Corbyn's,
Oh, of course. He
cheering them
showed
on.
up.
So,
He always will
like-
show up for the anti-Jewish fest.
Yes.
That's what
Yeah,
he
but
lives
this
for.
is-
This guy gets energy from this. So my question is, and that's another legal question, could this show bite South Africa in the tuchus? Because if they are seen to be aiding and abetting terrorists, and most normal countries have defined Hamas as a terrorist group, could we not turn this around on them eventually?
I don't think anyone cares. South Africa's been doing this for years. I mean, they're fully in bed with the Islamic Republic and Hamas.
Of Iran, of course.
I mean, they've welcomed Hamas there. They've had meetings. They've
have
had
an
like
office.
senior Hamas figures. They're not even ashamed of it.
I think, though, this is going to go kind of globally in one of two ways, and it's to my mind, and it's going to either we're going to keep going down this sewer, okay, which we are currently
How can
spiraling.
it go down
Spiraling.
anymore?
Well,
Vivian,
we're
give
just
me some
starting.
hope.
We can.
Give me some hope.
Early
woman.
days. Or we can have a real kind of aha moment.
And what?
That Western nations see this as an opportunity to get their act together and to start to become true allies, just like it took a while in the 30s, right?
Yes.
It took a while in the 30s.
It took a while. They never really got there.
Well, they did
were
eventually,
slaughtered first.
and the U.S. was dragged in, from their isolationist preference. And what I think we're seeing now are the very early stages of a much broader global conflict.
I agree.
And the International Court of Justice could be a really important turning point for the West to realize, because Germany can't handle what's going on in their borders, the UK can't, France can't, Canada can't, the US can't. They've got to get their proverbial stuff together.
So you think this is basically culminating into kind of an awakening of the world?
I'm saying that's the best case scenario.
Best case scenario.
It's turning into the do or die situation, I think.
What?
Yeah.
Are we heading
recognition.
towards
Yeah.
a third world war? I mean, I've been saying now.
I think we're kind of in it.
I agree. I've been saying now for a while that Iran is the Hitler of today.
Yep.
Absolutely.
We're back in 1930s, and this is a
And it's
reckoning.
appeasement.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But this is the
exactly.
moment. This is the moment that the West could wake up and have a corrective experience from pre-Second World War, when it was only the British, or Churchill, a great man, that stood up to Hitler, because even British politicians at the time were appeasing Hitler.
Exactly.
Thinking, Ian, take a piece, throwing him a piece of meat, thinking that that was the end of it, which is what the world does to Iran. Isn't
But
it?
the whole world, it wasn't just it. Look, we had years of Chamberlain too.
That's
Before
what
we
I'm saying.
exactly
We're
before
in-
we
are
got
we in the
Hitler.
We have the
Chamberlain mode?
Chamberlain years. Let's move on now.
I think we're so we're yeah.
How
but
long
that's
are these Chamberlain years of today going to last? And with the information technology that we have today,
not as long.
We're not going to
So,
see.
people are the whole Houthi thing, right? And
Yeah.
the fact that America sort of stepped up and everyone's well, many Western
They
countries.
dragged the British in.
Exactly, and the French, and we got 3 Canadians, who are doing office work, because that's all we have. But the
we talk
U.S.
about
the
kids?
U.S. is leading, And somebody was saying to me yesterday, someone very knowledgeable about these sorts of issues, and they just spoken to a group, and they said, in North America, in the US actually, and they just said, now America's going to retreat, we're seeing it into isolationism, and it's going to be kind of World War I, World War II all over again. I said, no, because everything happens in a very compressed timeline.
Everything's faster now.
Everything's faster, and they're going to hit America in their bases abroad. They're going to hit.
They are.
Exactly.
They're hitting them. 130 targets.
Exactly, but it's going to accelerate. So they, like the Iranian axis needs America engaged, right?
Yeah.
They can't let them out. And that's what we're going to see. And I think that's what we're in the middle of seeing. And it's just going to kind of keep building and mounting, and the ICJ proceedings are a part of that.
Where's Iran in all of this? Are they still kind of in the point of just, let's push our proxies to do the dirty work, let them fight amongst themselves, let them do our dirty work, and we're just sitting pretty? Or are they being slowly dragged in? What do you think?
I don't think they're being, there's not enough pressure from the West at this point.
There's not.
They're
Because they're
focused
busy?
on, Hezbollah is very strong.
Yeah.
The Houthis are pretty strong too. And they have the entire West focused on the Houthis. They're not worried at all. They're sitting pretty.
They've
They're doing whatever they want.
the Houthis as a decoy, let's keep them busy.
And after them, it will be Hezbollah. They have a long time until they're actually going, if it was up to them, until they're actually going to have to face the music, so to speak, for what they're doing.
You follow Iran much more closely than I do. The last few months, have there not been changes domestically?
It's been worse. They've been much worse.
But why
because they can get away with it. They've
Exactly.
arrested everybody they can. They've executed everybody they can. They're bumping up executions.
And they're not under the media eye because people are busy
Exactly.
here in Ukraine.
Ukraine and Gaza and everywhere
what
else.
happened, Emily, to those brave people who 2 years ago almost now came out and wanted a revolution, started something? What's happened to them?
So all the protest leaders have either been executed or are in prison. All of them. That's why you see some demonstrations, but why you don't see large-scale demonstrations.
What I don't understand is why we are not supporting those protest leaders, why we never, not we, I'm talking about the Western world, not Israel, we've got our own problems. But this would be the time for regime change, wouldn't it? Without a world
And 2009.
war,
And
Yeah.
2009.
when, who was it, Obama dragged them, let them go under the bus and really supported the wrong revolutions in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Why do we always do this?
Because we are not guided by principled leaders these days.
Yeah.
So where's the little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here? We've got the looming threat of a world war with Iran. We've got them attacking through their proxies, Western military targets who are coming up. We've got our own potential war with Hezbollah in the north, which would be so much worse than what we're doing right now, which is so painful. Give me some.
Hang on.
light.
Don't forget that we have the West Bank on the verge of exploding because Bibi won't deal with it, and we also have various interests in the Middle East financing all of the demonstrations in the West, which are not spontaneous. We know now that everyone's being paid.
Suddenly pro-Houthi demonstrations.
Yeah, and they're being paid. They're being paid to demonstrate.
Somebody told me that they asked somebody in the UK, "Why are you here?" He says the Turks are paying.
Yeah.
The Turks are paying.
There are a few governments, Middle Eastern governments, that are paying.
Oh my God.
And they're paying a lot.
So do we think that
So you
it's
want
going
now.
to get a lot worse before it gets better? That's
Yes.
what you said
Yes.
earlier?
Absolutely.
It's
Yes.
going to get worse before it gets better?
Yep.
So we will be with you. All of this.
When it hopefully doesn't get worse.
And hopefully when it gets better, we can talk about funner things like gossip. And now from the very sublime to perhaps a lighter touch on our show. And we're really proud to have a guest all the way from Hollywood who has been also on the front lines of fighting the war of words for Israel against some pretty heavy anti-Israel voices. Ben Gleib. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Flora, and everybody. Thank you.
How long have you been in Israel for?
This is day 8.
How's it going?
It's going good. It's going really well. I've been here during better times before, so it's wild. You know, this trip is very different purpose than coming before, which was just to meet girls and get drunk. This is the opposite of that.
Yes.
Any girl came up to me, I'm like, please, not this trip.
Not now.
And don't offer me any alcohol.
No. Well, I do need the alcohol some of the these nights.
Oh
I
my
do
God,
need some.
tell me about it. Ben, you are most famous for, at least in the last few months, for co-anchoring on the Young Turks with not friend of Israel, what's his name?
Cenk Uygur, yes.
Cenk Uygur, who is Turkish, one of the founders of Young Turks, and at the moment, very loud, prolific, anti-Israel voice. How do you manage this? How can you stand this man? And how can you really sit in a co-anchor show with the crap that he spews?
Can I add one thing to that?
Yep.
And why?
Okay, well, the first, let me just say, he is anti-Israel very strongly at the moment and yells at me in these debates about that, and I try to debate back. He is a good man, however, and I do think he cares very much about people in general. I just think he sees this war completely wrong, as much of the world does, and he doesn't, I think he's seeing it through a simplistic lens that is what a lot of people are. They're buying into a lot of the propaganda that's being fed, because to his credit, he still has me on the air to lead anchor when I'm on with him and frame the story as I like, present it as I like, and then he just yells at me and says I'm wrong. And when other anchors lead the stories about Israel, it is completely the opposite, and they're throwing around terms that are not at all fair and are quite maligning of this nation. So to his credit, he has me on the air still. Why do I do it? I never understand why anybody resigns when they're in a position of power or with a reach of voice that they could actually affect change. That just literally causes the problem to be worse. I never understand when somebody's in an administration that is corrupt and they're like, this is so corrupt, I'm leaving and I will have no effect on making it any better.
Right.
My one chance, it makes no sense. You're in there, we do enough preaching to the choir in our echo chambers on social media. I could quit the network on a protest stance on this and then just talk to people who already agree with me.
You're right.
Or I can stay on this network and have more and more people hate me every time I go on the air, but maybe convert a few minds. And I've already seen some shift in the comments of some people being more open-minded to what I say. Not a lot, but some.
Once you explain how you're co-hosting and really given free reign, I mean, that takes away the why, because I threw out the why. No, I agree with you. But do you feel, you say, well, you're starting to see some kind of, moderation or different kinds of questions. Do you think that you really are able to have an influence?
Yeah, I don't have a poll of these people, but just from my gauge in the comments and the viewer comments that we read on air, originally they were terrible. I mean, people calling me Genocide Ben, like
Baby
they call
killer, no?
Baby killer.
Should I get
I
called?
don't know. I like Genocide Ben.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Gen Ben.
I'm gonna,
Gen Ben.
Yeah.
I want to get that on my license plate
Yeah.
at home. That's the move. So now they don't use that as much, and they're not. Some are saying that they're happy now. They said they used to think I should be off the air, and a lot of people trying to get me fired from the air. But then now they say, actually, I'm convinced it makes sense to hear both sides. And Cenk also defends that. To his credit, he says, you have to hear both sides. He says, I call it genocide. Ben doesn't see it that way. You have to hear both perspectives. So it's a pretty big strike against somebody to erroneously call it a genocide, but at least being open to hearing the alternative, that it's not a genocide when the people who attacked you are the ones who literally are intending and trying over and over again to commit a genocide.
Right.
It's a weird flipped time. Everybody's looking in the mirror and reflecting outwardly what they see internally and don't want to address. It's very strange. It's very wild.
Yeah, it's also just not a genocide.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
see,
that's
this
the
is-
other thing.
Right.
It's just not.
100%.
It's not.
Conflicted about the idea of representing both sides with someone like him, only because I agree with you in principle, but only because it's not genocide and there are actual definitions. And so to say there are two sides when there is a definition and it is not that is a little bit problematic for me. I would still show up and debate him, and
That's
if you
what I'm
ever want
saying.
someone else to join, I'm in favor. However, I am conflicted about that.
Well, I'm
about
completely
that issue.
Exactly, but the options are just
Either let him have the
millions
whole
of people
platform
be
or
100% convinced, or have somebody point by
push back.
point in real time push back and say
Yeah.
very ridiculous, stupid comment, makes no sense, and bring some sort of common sense. I think the way I see it, and as I watch the debates back, it seems to me
You
like
watch yourself?
only in this topic because
Okay, I
I
never
want to
watched
be
He
myself.
wants to do better.
Okay.
I know.
do better.
I do watch it because we're very self-critical women. So I'm always like, I could have said this and I should have done that, and that facial expression does not look good at my age. Anyway.
No, I mostly watch it back just to see how good I look and to pat myself on the
You're a
back.
very handsome man.
Yes.
Thank you very
and
much.
single, ladies.
That's
single.
right. True
And in
that.
Tel Aviv, not this trip, but on the next trip.
Not
We're going to
this
be
trip,
focusing
correct.
on finding him a
I've got
wife.
a
That's
daughter
right.
for you.
Thank you so much.
And
Every
his-
time you say someone says that, it doesn't work out well, but DMs are open.
His Israeli mother will thank us forever.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, one question I have about Cenk. He's Turkish, right?
Yeah.
Is he a Erdogan mouthpiece? Is Young Turks getting any money from Erdogan?
No, not at all. I mean, the network was started by Cenk and two
Yeah.
Jewish friends of his, and the name is just, I don't know his stances on
It's a
everything.
great name, by the way.
I don't
Almost
agree.
as good as the Quad.
Almost.
I don't agree because it's so polarizing, and the network is not Turkish. When I have to tell people I'm an anchor on the Young Turks, they say, "Are you Turkish? What is it? Turkish news? Does this
You're
come out of
Turkish
Turkey?
Jew?
Is it funded by
So
Erdogan?"
this is
All
the
these
same crowd
questions.
that's never actually heard
It's
of
just
World
a
War
name.
II.
Yeah, but
they don't know
Correct.
what, right?
my-
Yeah,
my
people don't like sequels. It's the main reason.
But they don't understand, like, whatever.
Yes.
Oh.
But my question is, if he isn't a mouthpiece of Erdogan, does he oppose Erdogan? Is he a groupie of Erdogan? Because he's on the same side of this debate as Erdogan right now. And a lot of my Turkish friends in the diaspora hate Erdogan and hate what he's doing to the only kind of secular Muslim country who could be very influential, and in the end, they're just going towards, radicalization. So how do you, what does he think about this?
I don't know the answer. I don't think we've ever discussed it on air when I've been on.
Oh,
and
please
so,
do.
Please.
But yeah, maybe I'll bring it up next
Or
time.
let's
but
bring him to the quad. So that
he would be happy. I mean, if you would
Really?
zoom him
Oh, I'd
in, he would
love
be
him.
happy to
I'd
come
love
on.
to
Let's
have
zoom
him
in.
on.
Let's zoom him in.
He would love to do it, actually, I'm sure, because he's
It'll
also
be a
running for
bad day
president
for
right
him.
now. And
He's
so
running for
Right.
president,
He is.
and does he happen to be a misogynist as well? Because
Yes.
those are our favorite types of guests.
Well, that's the only way you can win as president in America.
Very true. Very
But
true.
Ben, you also run for
I
president.
did
Tell us
run for
about
president.
that.
That's why I didn't win, because I'm too nice to people and I respect women.
You're
My
not
apologies.
misogynist enough?
I'm so sorry.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
Oh, Ben, and you didn't have like sleazy affairs.
No,
so it
no.
wouldn't have gone
But
down.
next trip, again, I'd like to remind people. No, it wouldn't have worked out, but I ran just in efforts to stop Trump. I believe he's an existential threat to democracy and to truth in the world, and is somebody who's just the most blatantly selfish person in it for only himself. And I was very afraid when I was watching the early 2020 campaign, and all the candidates running against him on the Democratic side were just cautious politicians who were speaking very boringly, and I didn't think they had any chance to win, to be able to beat a man who's just the greatest flamethrower. He's the biggest heckler in political history, and the way you beat a heckler is with a comedian, and that's what I do well.
It worked for Zelensky.
It worked for Zelensky. Yeah, a lot of people that criticized my campaign, their first question was, "You're a comedian. Is this a joke?" And then Zelensky becomes the hero of the world, and they're a lot
Yes.
quieter now about
But
that.
you know what your strategy should be, because Zelensky actually had a show about him being the president.
He did.
Yeah.
And then he became the president. So maybe Netflix should give you a show about you being the president, and maybe that's what'll get you in.
I want to be in the writer's room.
That's a deal. If you know anybody at
All right.
Netflix, please pitch this. I'm open to it.
I got people.
Or you can create an alternate reality here on the Quad where you start referring to me as the president of
Oh.
America.
Also an option.
That works.
Yeah.
So Ben, according
President,
to,
Mr.
according to your
President, please.
logic, are you not concerned this time around that Biden is not going to beat Trump if Trump ends up being the nominee? Like, what is your concern right now?
I'm
is Gary
concerned.
Newsom your governor?
He is.
Going to
He
be
is.
the candidate for the Democratic Party? How do you see
Listen,
it?
I am concerned. I don't like that Biden just had his 105th birthday and he's not the sharpest he's ever been by any stretch.
He's been amazing on Israel.
He's been amazing on Israel,
Really?
first president
The
to
adult in the
fly
room.
during wartime to
Yeah.
Israel, and he's really been great. So a lot of people who are saying they won't vote for Biden again because his stance on Israel is not strong enough are idiotic. I mean,
Right.
a lot of people are saying that, and
in your world, in the kind of progressive.
yes.
Right.
And people are turning on him. I don't understand that, but whoever
Probably
is,
because he released $6 billion to the Islamic Republic of Iran.
that's a good point. It's a good counter argument. It's a good counter argument. But that deal was in place beforehand, and
Oh, well.
people aren't
I mean,
taking
there are deals
proxies
and
into
there are
account
deals,
as they should. That's a fair point. But whoever is putting the prompter speeches in Biden's sunglasses is generally doing the right thing for Israel at this
Yeah.
moment. And so
I want to give him credit that he is,
Yeah.
and he has been always declared Zionist. and he has some good people around him.
He has some great people around him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, yeah.
Blinken is actually the president, in my view. But
Blinken.
Anthony Blinken.
Perhaps.
Yeah, I think-
At least it's not Obama, which would be a disaster.
Yeah,
because he's been terrible on this conflict, whereas
not
the
been great
Clintons
since the
have been
conflict.
amazing.
Yeah,
And
they
with,
have
like-
been speaking out
and
nicely
Michelle
for sure.
has been silent on
Terrible.
Yeah, that's-
silent on Bring Them Home. Silent.
Bring them home. She had the
disappointing.
Bring
I
the
like to-
Girls Home
Yeah.
when Boko Haram did exactly the same, mass rape and kidnapping, and we've heard nothing from Michelle Obama. Shame on you.
It has been very, very sad because it's easy to stand for returning hostages when
Or it
it's
should
not
be.
controversial.
Shouldn't be political.
Yeah, when it's controversial, that's when you still need to show that you have some sort of gumption, some sort of morals to stand
Why?
by.
Yeah, but why would
Why
it even
is
be
it
controversial?
controversial?
They're hostages. They're civilians taken.
They're
Like that's
I don't even
precisely
think-
the problem.
15-year-old
answer to
girls
that-
getting serially raped in a dungeon.
Yeah, no, I mean, when you put it that way, obviously, but obviously the counter argument is that people think once you weigh into that side, they don't see it as they agree it's horrible, and they don't see it as bad as people losing their lives constantly every day, and so
But they didn't apply
it is
that.
inherently
It's worse.
political.
They didn't apply that to
I prefer
Nigeria.
to die than be raped in a dungeon.
They don't what?
They
on a
didn't
daily
apply that
basis.
that logic to Nigeria.
They didn't
Michelle
apply
Obama did not apply that to Nigeria, right? So same argument.
Yeah, I'm
So
not here to
just-
defend that.
No, I know. I'm just saying, I don't get the principled approach.
Ben, let's finish on a really positive note and tell us a little bit about your mom, who is Israeli and did the army in what year? You showed me a really inspiring picture of your mother, really attractive woman, surrounded by men, looking like a real badass in the army. Tell us a little bit about her and how she inspires you.
My mom is a total badass. She's amazing. You know, she's Israeli. She's from Zichron, Yaakov, and she went to the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and she was a teacher here and an actor as well. Before she met my dad and moved to the States, served in the IDF, and because she was very beautiful and strong and amazing, but I think mostly beautiful, they put her dead center in the front of the troops. Of the pictures.
Look how equal we are.
Yes, and for the same reason, Moshe Dayan recruited her to work in his office.
Oh my God! Did
And so
she
she
manage
worked-
to? Did he meet to her?
She says he was very respectful to her,
thank
that he was hitting on everybody else, but not the girls in his office. So that's at least impressive. But that's because they always
Boundaries, you know?
that's because they always stood to his left, so he did not see them.
Oh my God!
They were not able. They were able to evade it. He
out
thought
of
it was an
sight.
empty office. Yeah.
He
He
didn't
thought
see
they were
how
on the phone with him. They were like, he was like, "Get me those files." They're like, "Yes, sir, I'll be right in." They just throw the files in and stay out of the office. So that worked. But she's an incredible woman. You know, she is, I think, you know, like a lot of Israeli women, she's a very sweet, kind-hearted woman, funny, sarcastic, but sweet and kind. Until you mess with her, and then she.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one time she called into my podcast, Last Week on Earth, available right now, where
called
podcasts are
into your
sold.
podcast?
Well, she just
Your
called me.
mom?
She just called me once
That
on the
is
phone.
hilarious.
And
That's
I picked
hilarious.
up, and I had a guest on, and I said, I'm going to pick up my mom and bring her on the
Good boy.
on the podcast. And,
Jewish boy.
And I said, Mom, it's so nice talking to you, but I'm in the middle of the podcast. I got to go. And we were talking about the Middle East at the time. And so she says, no problem, sweetheart. I will let you go. But just remember, I can disassemble an AK-47 in 10 seconds with my eyes closed. Bye-bye.
Casual.
These are the
Yeah.
type of women we love. And today, without Ashira here with us, you, Ben, historically are the first time that the Quad has allowed a man to, to be the number 4 in this
I'm honored.
group of very badass women like your mom. So
I am
we
honored.
take inspiration from women like your mom.
Me
And we are
too.
very happy that she produced a son like you who in wartime comes in, flies in to stand with your people and make it as funny as this horrible situation can possibly be, but at the same time really, having the moral clarity to fight the people who are against us. So thank you so much, Ben Gleib.
It is my pleasure, and I just wanted to thank you three for joining me as the 4th branch of your quad. And I'm so glad that things in Israel are finally evolving to a point where men are getting an opportunity.
Yes, right?
I really appreciate that.
Yes.
We've needed this for a long
The
time. and-
matriarchy is exhausting.
Yeah, give us a
Yeah.
shot. We're going to prove you right.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben.
My
Thanks,
pleasure.
Ben.
So that was Ben Gleib, all the way from LA. And we do make a commitment that we will find him a wife after the war. Let's hope that doesn't take too long. Okay, ladies, for our most popular segment, I've got to tell you, I have to say this again. I get stopped at weddings, bar mitzvahs, scumbag of the week. Who's your scumbag of the week? People sending in recommendations of scumbag of the week. Once again, scumbag of the week. Vivian, let's start with you. Who's your scumbag this week?
Well, I want to know why I don't get invited to all these weddings and bar mitzvahs, but anyhow.
Because maybe It's my children's. It's my friend's children's getting married. Right
Okay,
now.
well, no, that's great.
Hey, it's good. In Israel, it costs money to go to weddings.
No, I know,
By
I
the
know, I
way,
know.
if you want to
You're
come
coming
along
out
with me,
ahead.
my husband's out of commission this year because
No,
his father
I
passed
do
away.
get invited, but just it's not a constant thing. But in any event, so I'm sticking to the International Court of Justice.
Yeah.
And my scumbag of the week is the South African legal team.
Yeah.
For just doing all the wrong things.
Was there nobody
Not
serious?
just about Israel, but for the West, for humanity, for liberal democracy, for
their own
freedom.
people.
They're taking, well, but there was an Irish lawyer and someone who was called South African,
They
but
took an Irish lawyer, right?
yeah, shocker, Ireland.
Who's apparently done things against Israel before.
Yeah, I would expect. And for very deliberately, malevolently, knowingly doing everything they can to destroy this country and this country's
Legitimacy?
good name. A legitimate, yeah, to even question, to get up there and say that, call into question the legitimacy of the existence of this country, to suggest that everything about Israel is evil from day one. And we've just kind of conned the world into this, falling for our sympathy, victim syndrome.
Which is gaslighting, because that's exactly what the Palestinians
which is
do, by
what
the way.
all of this is, and to say the things they did in the way that they did, to bring to a court such a serious, horrific charge that is just not substantiated. It just makes me sick. So they're my scumbags.
Scumbag of the week, South African legal team at the ICJ. Emily.
Well, my scumbag this week is, he could really be a scumbag pretty much every week.
All of our scumbags are,
Yeah.
or could be repeated weekly.
Yeah. Mohammed El-Kurd.
Oh, a constituent of Jerusalem of mine.
Yes, of course,
he?
of
He's
Sheikh Jarrah fame.
That's how he became famous.
Oh,
Yes.
Because he's
okay.
been crying that he's getting kicked out of his Sheikh Jarrah
Because
home,
he's a squatter.
even though he's still there.
Yeah.
And nobody's kicked him
It's
out.
the longest
Squatting
expulsion
case.
from a home I've ever heard of.
Yes.
But okay.
Yeah.
So he's made a name for himself by being as hateful and nasty as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And that tradition continued this week with the demonstration in London, the pro-Houthi demonstration against the UK for
Pro-Hamas.
attacking, pro-Hamas, pro-Houthi, pro-Islamic Republic, where of course Mohammed El-Kurd spoke as a featured speaker. And among the things that he mentioned were how we need to de-Zionize the world, which of course is a sort of a code name for ethnic cleansing
Kill the
or
Jews.
genocide,
Kill
or
the Jews.
take your pick.
Kill the
Yeah.
Jews.
And then
Keep it simple.
he ended his speech, and this is the part that really made social media headlines. He said, we must not be complacent about the Palestinian cause. We must normalize massacres. Thank you.
So basically he's admitting
Yes.
that they committed massacre.
Yes, so this went viral.
Yes.
And in the immediate aftermath of his speech, after this video surfaced on social media from, by the way, some of the more extreme Muslim sources, they are the ones who posted it first.
Zionism is apartheid, it's genocide, it's murder, it's a racist ideology rooted in settler expansion and racial domination, and we must root it out of the word. We must de-Zionize because Zionism is a death cult. Zionism is indefensible.
Our day will come, but we must not be complacent. Our day will come, but we must normalize massacres as the status quo.
He said, a lot of people are reporting my speech to the police. They're welcome. I don't care. I don't give a whatever. So after the video started spreading and people were tagging the Metropolitan Police in London,
this is
and they're
a crime.
like,
It's
this is
actually a crime.
unacceptable. A few hours later, he suddenly tweets, oh my gosh, whatever, this isn't such a big deal, I just misspoke. Here's a screenshot of my speech, and he shows the text of his speech that was written, and he highlighted, he bolded the text where it says, should not normalize massacres. Let's say he's telling the truth. Okay, if I accidentally said, let's normalize massacres instead of let's not normalize massacres, you know what I would do? I would
send a
correct
correction,
it.
of course.
Yes, I would correct it immediately because you're in front of a crowd of thousands of people calling for a massacre. calling to normalize massacres,
Which in the UK is incitement of racial hatred, which is actually a crime. America is looser because of the right to free speech, but UK is not.
Yes. So the Metropolitan Police actually responded a few hours after this video. They said that they were aware of it, that they're investigating it, and that they're also aware of the statements Mohammed al-Kurd made after the fact, and that they will be speaking to him. And he responded to this saying like, oh, you know where I'm at, like being very argumentative. He's cursing at MPs in the UK who condemned what he said. He's just a nasty, vile, aggressive, violent, pro-terror person.
And a liar.
Absolute scumbag.
A liar.
Of course.
He lies about his status in Jerusalem with the Sheikh Jarrah, where his family, just to give it some context, his family do not have any legal claims in terms of ownership of the apartment, and yet the Israeli Supreme Court said you cannot get thrown out, just pay a very symbolic tenancy fee. And because he played into the hands of the Palestinian politicians, they refused to pay their $200 a year of symbolic tenancy fees in order to have a fight and show Israelis as people who kick out people from
I don't think he was playing into the hands. I mean, I think he's a supporter of Hamas. He's been very supportive of the terrorist, regime there and elsewhere throughout this operation from day one. And let's not forget the fact that it was Mohammed al-Kurd who tweeted a photo of one of the 9-year-old hostages making fun of him for looking stupid or nerdy or something like that. I mean,
that little boy.
A vile human being. Just disgusting to his core.
Tell us how you really feel.
Mohammed al-Kurd, you are Emily's scumbag of the week. And my scumbag of the week is a guy called Mohammed Jafar Malala, who is or was a professor at Oberlin College, which is, of course, a bastion of liberal social justice, whatever. And he has not only been extremely, anti-Israel his whole entire life, he was also the ambassador to Iran for a number of years and was also vile against Israel as the ambassador of Iran. Then he has dual Iranian American citizenship. He's been teaching in this college, and of course, because this goes hand in hand, as well as being vilely, horribly lying about Israel, he's also been accused of sexual harassment. So these things go together, apparently. You lie, you're an anti-Semite, and you're also, can be, a harasser and a predator of women. But the good news is he's been kicked out of Oberlin College. And he made the news again last week because one of those sexual harassment cases are moving forward. And that's when he came to my attention, even though I knew about him already for a while. But decided that this week, the beautiful toxic combination of a misogynist sexual harasser and anti-Semite deserved to be my scumbag of the week, Mohammed Jafar Malala.
I just want to make it clear that I am not making those allegations against all members of the South African legal team.
Okay, so Vivian does not think they're sexual harassers. They may or may not.
They may or may not be. I'm just not taking that position.
Yeah. But in this case, my guy,
carve-out.
Mohammed Jafar Malati, you are my scumbag of the week. So, as we usually end our show, a little bit of light at the end of these tunnels. Who's our hero of the week? Who do we love this week? Who do we thank this week? Emily, let's start with you.
It's a bit overdue, but I guess my heroes of the week would be the US, UK, and allies who are finally taking action against the Houthis. I think this is something that threatens international security, especially the Western world. It's obviously a power play by the Islamic Republic, all the activities they've been doing targeting international ships. So I'm happy to see that, and I hope that they are effective and successful in their operation shutting down the Houthis, and that's it.
Okay, UK, US, thanks for actually going out there and doing something about the fact that you were attacked.
Canada sent 3 office clerks to support the effort.
Where?
To support
To the
effort.
boat?
Exactly. Well, they're
Hey,
still on their
better
way.
than nothing.
They still haven't been deployed. We don't have an army. We don't have an army.
3 office clerks are going to go and do what?
It's unclear.
Okay.
Unclear. Okay, so my heroes, because I like to keep it tight. The Israeli legal team in The Hague.
Yes.
Some of whom I know personally and have known for many years and worked with. Tal Becker, who is the the boss of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs legal group is beyond brilliant, and he really just hit it out of the park with his submissions, and so elegant and so sharp and so hard-hitting. And the bottom line is, this is a complete abuse of this court, of what it's intended to do, and we really need to take back the night, you know, metaphorically, of course. And I also want to, there were, I think, 3.
Malcolm Shaw.
That's right, Malcolm Shaw,
was
British.
Yeah.
There was Galita Rajwan.
She's great.
Yeah, unbelievable. And her job was really to present the detailed, factual kind of, you know, the pushback. And so, you know, the fact that we're accused of committing genocide and, you know, blockading relief and blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, wait, we gave 3 weeks notice that we're coming in on the ground. We gave a tremendous advantage to the enemy.
And hundreds of trucks of relief every day?
And hundreds of trucks of relief. And, you know, by the way, Egypt's also blockading relief, in fact, more stringently than we are, and nobody's talking about that. Oh, and by the way, there's a war going on, and every relief truck that enters the Gaza Strip is hijacked by armed Hamas thugs who take the stuff and they shoot their own people who are desperate for food. So maybe, world, you've kind of got this kind of upside down, a little inverted, and you should be directing your criticism to Hamas.
Absolutely.
That's created this situation and perpetuates it. And they just did a really, I thought, extraordinary job.
I did.
And
they
you
made
know,
us proud. They really did.
They did, and we know they did a great job because on social media they're getting hammered. So
oh, that's always a sign.
yes.
Like we do.
Actually, I just thought of another scumbag for another week, but
Oh, we've got
in
many,
connection,
many
yes, we
weeks
do.
of scumbags.
So that's my thanks, guys, for doing such an amazing job in representing Israel in what I think is an easy case, but politically very challenging.
Hear, hear. The Israeli legal team, thank you. And my hero of the week is actually, ongoing with your theme, is Germany.
Thank you.
For actually
Brilliant.
standing up and saying, this is a farce, this is bogus.
Yeah.
This is a corrective experience for Germany. And for standing with Israel, I've been critical for many years
getting shivers again.
of the non-profit organizations that support the Palestinians. Many of them are German, and they come here and they harass soldiers. But the German government are unequivocally coming out, and I hope this is the domino effect when other countries look at Germany as an example for standing with truth, standing with justice, because it's good for them also, because they will never be able to defend themselves from horrible terrorist attacks if they don't. But I think Germany is doing this out of principle, and I heard their politicians speak. And so thank you, Germany, and well done, Germany, for being my hero of the week and for standing with Israel.
Can I just want to jump in very quickly because, you know, we had this discussion early on, should we have gone to the court, should we not? And I mentioned the German thing, and you've now really kind of explained it in a great way, and that's important. It's important that this opportunity by Israel going to the court, this opportunity is created for the right countries to step up and do the right thing. And Germany will embolden others, for sure.
Please, God, amen. And that is our show this week. And we pray, like we do every week, that by next week, our hostages will be home. Thank you.